lost the race, got last place.
Chased on the descent, and I don't think I ever got back on.
I'm sure I came in nearly last in my first race.
It was pretty bad.
Hey, vegan cyclists. So I just got back from a 3-day training camp in Slow. Awesome. First 2 days I rode with everyone, and the third day I did with my son. While I was there, I had an opportunity to ask some of the other guys, the local racers, about their first race and how they knew they were ready to race. Because I sort of get the feeling that a lot of people who have not raced or want to race, they always say in the future, sometime soon, they put it off. They want to, but they're so afraid of that first race probably not going that well. And I can just straight up tell you right now, it's not gonna go that well. It's gonna suck, you're gonna get dropped, you're probably not gonna win. My first race, I had been riding for 2 months. I jump in this race thinking, man, 19 miles an hour is what I could hold on the flats. That's superhuman. I must be a specially talented, gifted monster at 19 miles an hour. And then I get in that race and I get totally blown out, and I can't believe that the beginner class is running like 25 mile an hour averages for 30 to 40 minutes. I get blown off the back, a group of us get lapped and we get pulled. Bummer. But it sparked the progression of I need to get better, I need to do better next time and get stronger, and it got addicting. So let's hear what these guys have to say.
I'd been training with my friends and thought I was pretty badass until I got to my first race, and we hit the first climb and got dropped, chased on the descent, and I don't think I ever got back on. I learned that it was a lot harder than we all think it is.
How did you know you were ready to race for your first race?
Well, I thought that I was ready, but when I got out there, I realized I was, I could hang, but just not enough, to quite make the group. But I think to really get into it and to know that you're ready to race, I think you want to get out and do some good group rides. There's plenty of race rides around that you can jump in, and I think it's really just about getting comfortable on the bike and riding around other guys and riding really fast and realizing that you can ride smoothly in the pack. That's probably the most important thing, because usually your first race is going to be a bunch of guys with different abilities. There's going to be guys that are really strong, there's going to be guys that are not. Some guys are going to be smooth, some guys are going to be like really sketchy, but just getting into it and getting into a groove, and eventually, you're going to get to where you're able to, compete for the finish, and just continue on from there.
How old are you?
Too old, 50, 51 in 2 months.
What category are you?
I'm a category 2.
So tell me about your first race.
Man, my first bike race, I was just wanting to be a bike racer, and I jumped into a category 4 criterium and just hung on. That's all I can remember. It's been so long, I don't even remember that first race, but that's all I remember is hanging on. They didn't have Cat 5s back then, so Cat 4 was like your first adventure into bike racing.
So how did you know you were ready to race?
Oh goodness, I didn't. I was doing triathlon, so I was fit as far as biking goes. I just wasn't fit bike racing wise. I just kind of jumped into a race and hope for the best. I mean, back then there was no clinics, any of that stuff. There wasn't even Cat 5. There was no mentor program. It was just, you want to race, get your license, jump into a Cat 4 race and go for it.
How was your first race ever?
My first race ever was Santa Rosa Corporate Center Tuesday night criterium practice racing, where we raced for preems of fresh baked bread. And I'm sure I came in nearly last in my first race. I was a young 18-year-old with no road experience. Yeah.
So how did you know you were ready to race, or what made you start that first race?
I was excited because I worked in a bike shop and had a buddy who dragged my butt out for some road biking while I grew up mountain biking.
It was Island View, the UCSB kids, whatever, crit. I was attacking probably the first 3 laps, just attack because it was going so slow. Midway through I realized it wasn't working. Sat in for a bit, and then it said 1 to go. 1. So in my head I thought, okay, this is it, I gotta go. So I went, and then they said, there's a bell. Yep, it was 1 + 0. lost the race, got last place.
How do you know you're ready to race?
It's kind of like having a baby. You never know when you're ready until you have the baby and you just do it.
And so how was your very first race?
It was pretty pathetic. It was a criterium, it was in Merced, really technical course. Got there, race takes off, kind of figured, it's kind of spread apart and thought, oh, it's all gonna come back together. Well, it never did. Back then, this was like 30 years ago. There was a team from Davis, they were sponsored by Peugeot. They went to the front, they hit the gas, they blew the thing apart. I ended up in a chase group, and we made it about halfway through before the officials pulled us and we were done. That was it. It was pretty bad.
How do you know you're ready to race?
Wow. You got to go out and do, if there's like practice races or twilights, you need to go out and do a few of those before you jump in your first one. And then you just got to go out and do it. There really isn't any, there's nothing you can do. It's going to be faster than you expected. It's going to be harder than you expected. And, depending on the course, if you do something like what I did, where it's a really technical course, you might not finish. So.
And how old are you?
I'm going to be 60.
My first race was the Orange Cove Road Race. And I had an old aluminum bike with a 4221, had a 15% grade, and I got dropped on the promenade, which was a 10-mile promenade leading to the start of the race. And then I ended up having to walk my bike up the hill because I had a 4221, didn't know anything about gearing. And that was a pretty miserable start to my racing career. And then the next day was the Sanger Criterium, and I ended up getting 7th. And that's when I realized that my place in life was doing criteriums.
So how would someone know that they're ready to race?
Everybody's different. For me, I saw the Visalia Criterium come through town, and I just knew that I wanted to do that. And there was a lot of guys in town that kind of brought me up and taught me how to ride and how to pace line. And I think when I was able to finish that Sanger Criterium and do well, it gave me the confidence and made me want to race. And then every race after that, I just kept getting better and better.
How old are you?
6.
What's your name?
Athen.
Tell me about your first ever race.
My first race, I was nervous, and I went out, I lost. I had fun, but I got lost last.
How did you know you were ready to race?
I don't know.
Was it fun to race?
Yeah,
Do you want to race more?
yes.
To someone who's thinking about racing, what should they, but are like hesitant and they're afraid, what should they do?
They should just race and try and ride. Mini bro, yeah!
I hope that those guys had something really cool for you and that you could get some inspiration out of that. The idea is to let you know that racing isn't easy. Your first race is not going to be probably that awesome. But it happens to all of us. No one is immune to that first race jitters. No one's immune to kind of being humbled about how hard cycling really is. So I hope that you can take from this and go, you know what, if these guys can do it, if these guys had, a bad first race, I'll do it. I'll jump in there, I'll get my first bad race out of the way, and I'll start racing. Because it's definitely gonna help you with your cycling performance, even if you just race once, just to kind of get an idea of how strong people are. If you don't want to race, that's totally fine. It's also interesting just to hear what other people think. But I think pretty much the overall idea here is that you're never going to know when you are ready to race. You just got to do it. Jump in there, smash it. As always, guys, if you can cyclist, yeah!